about creating recipes for a successful off-grid lifestyle. And, you know, I'm pretty confident you've got some things you could share over the years of your experiences with trying to create that perfect recipe going off-grid. So, mate, look, we'll start off the interview today with what does living off-grid in the city mean to you?
When I tried to do it in 1996, it meant getting all my energy and water from the sky, from the sun, from the rain, and keeping all my sewage and stormwater on site, returning it to the way it was before it was developed. To answer your question today, 21 years later, I would say growing and eating as much local food and making sure I don't waste any food. So I'm not giving you the finger early in our discussion, but if you graph food waste as a country, the biggest two polluters, China and America. Sorry, did you want a long answer or a short answer?
Yeah.
So the biggest two polluters when graphed as a country are China and America. But this little finger here, the third country, is, look at these other fingers hiding out of the way. Anyway, the third country is food waste. And so, to me, I'm doing the best work I've ever done, both personally and in my professional waste, by working on food waste. My goal is to end food waste next year in New South Wales, and I can talk about that if you want to.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. I know a lot of people, for us, when we, you know, our main thing, solar is what we do, and to me, the most important thing you can do to reduce your carbon footprint is, buy local food. You know, it's the most energy intense thing. And, you know, I remember watching you at a talk one night, given those stats of it is the most energy intense thing that we do is we eat. So, yeah.
I'll put it in perspective. When I disconnected my house in 1996 with 2 adults and 2 children, we saved town water because we're no longer connected to town water or to town sewer. And that saved about 150,000 litres. If it was a typical house, it would save about 300,000 litres. But if I have an ordinary meal, say a breakfast of a small punnet of yogurt, a tomato, an egg, slice of toast and some bacon, 1,300 litres in that meal.
Yeah.
So one person eating, call it 1,000, 3,000 litres of water just to eat. So it's important. As I talk to you now, I'm not, you know, it's all coming from the sun, the energy here, the lights, but I have to eat. And the first thing you do when you go into a sustainable off-grid house, you say, gosh, that made me hungry, I'll have some food. And you get in the car and drive and get it. But if you can walk out the street, so what happened, gee, I'm talking a lot, sorry. Anyway, that's my answer.
Yeah, cool. So, yeah, it's for me, it's one of the biggest things when I know when I lived in Sydney, my biggest struggle was it was really hard to find local producers living out west in Sydney. I know where you live in the city, there's a lot more of that. You can buy local and a lot more suppliers. I found a real challenge out in Seven Hills. And now living in Lismore, mate, there's a market every day of the week. We're just spoiled up here. It's crazy. You can literally get fresh food every day, travel to a market. There's a market. I think there's only one day a week there's not a market. But you can go to the market every single day and buy fresh local food. So, yeah.
Well, you, your family, and people who live like you do in Lismore can sleep soundly with good justification, because by buying and eating local food and composting it, you're doing more than if you had a suburb of sustainable houses or off-grid houses. That's how powerful food is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting.
I only get one market a week. It's about a 10-minute walk. It's called Carriage Works.
Yep.
It's about, anyway, it's up the hill. I've noticed the change now. I've been doing this for a while. When I go into a chain store, very well named chain stores, they chain us, walk down those aisles, there's no smiles to be had. There's this diminution. I feel reduced. I feel less happy. And no one makes eye contact. We're a kind of prisoner in that space.
Yeah.
But when I go to Cage Works, there are kids playing, dogs, people sharing information. I can say to the guy who had 5 meters of water over his farm out at the Hawkesbury in those floods, I say, how's it going? He said, good. We could see it coming and we cropped the thing, and that's why I'm here today. You learn about food, but more than that, it makes me a good cook. People come and eat my food and they say, you're a good cook. I'll give you a practical explanation of why I'm misleading my guests. I bought some greens, some lettuce, radishes, some whatever, and I went away for 2 weeks. I came back, they were still in the fridge. I wrapped them. They were still beautiful and fresh.
Yeah.
I challenge anybody watching this to go to and buy commercially grown greens, lettuce, kale and whatever, put it in the fridge for 2 weeks, and then put it on the dinner table for your guests without a beating, nervous heart.
Yeah. You know, it definitely makes a difference. I picked a bunch of bananas off the tree yesterday, and it's amazing how much longer they last when you get them straight off the tree than you get them from the shop. So, yeah.
If this is, again, I'm not giving you the finger. Right? I'm trying to get this. There we are. I'm trying to get this finger on the right side. Anyway, if these two fingers are Melbourne and Sydney, and this bit here in the middle is, say, Wagga and Albury, Midway, there are freezers there as big as football fields. And you go in and they're in stages. This one will be 5 degrees, that'll be 0, that'll be -1. And a friend of mine was having an orange he bought. And I asked him to compare the orange I came home from the markets with. And he'd bought his at a chain store. He couldn't believe the difference in taste.
Yeah.
It tastes as though it's been frozen and rehydrated, warmed up for sale.
Yeah.
It's not just the taste. There's a drop in minerals. Okay, I take vitamin C and lots of stuff. But because the soil is so degraded, the food has lower mineral content, iron. What are our bones made of, Mike?
Calcium?
Yeah, calcium, zinc. That's why I look tall, dark and handsome.
To borrow your mirror, mate.
Yeah, I don't know who that old bloke is in the screen, but he needs help.
Yeah. So for people at home living in the city, where can they start? You've written 2 books now?
Say again?
You've written 2 books now?
Yeah, well, I wrote the book about sustainable design and housing. To me, there are these TV shows and these magazines, but I want to give back to people who don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what they spend matters to them. So I wrote this book to empower ordinary people to copy it. I wasn't sort of holding it to my chest or anything. I was saying, these are the shower heads, these are the things. And importantly, it's got my big mistakes. And I'd like to talk about some of those if that's okay. But then I learned about food and I thought, gosh, slow learner, well, never end. So then I started researching food. I actually did the fit out for Google, and I got the job to do their new offices because we weren't the cheapest tender. Google was born in 1998, 2 years after I did the sustainable housing, and their 53rd employee was a chef who was passionate about fresh local food. So I started doing it, and I was like, wow. So I said, during the job, we'd buy food from local farmers, give it to the brickies and the sparkies and so on, and pass during the job, and then pass on the relationship to Google's incoming caterers. And we got the job.
Yep.
And it was interesting just being a fly on the wall when the workers would get the food. They said, "This is really nice food." And usually you go onto a building site, there's an unmentionable black acid that rots your gut, an unmentionable burger or something. And a lot of them look as though they're eating rubbish. You eat rubbish, it doesn't turn out well. So I wrote a book about food, and importantly, I'm talking a lot. I'm going to be quiet for a little while, and you can talk to people. I'm tired of my own voice. I'll be back in about 5 or 10.
Cool. I know you've got to duck off into that call for a second. Mate, I'll bring up, I'll get everyone started for your Cool Seats project and have a look at the website.
Cool.
So Michael's just going to duck off and do a quick call at the moment. We're going to have a look at his Cool Seats project that he's been working on. He's going to tell us all about it. Just going to bring it up here. For some reason my browser is not bringing it up and sharing it. Here we go, Cool Seats. Michael Mobbs, I'm just see if I can work out and share my screen. Oh. Cool. So Michael's going to jump back on in a minute, guys, and he's going to tell us all about this new project with Cool Seats. And I suppose the work I've done with Michael over the years, and when I first took my house off grid, I went and had a chat with Michael, and he gave me some tips and advice on what I can do to make my place better. It's one of the things for me that, coming from an energy point of view, I've done lots of work on energy efficiency, and hadn't really given that much attention to water. So for you guys that don't know, that I took my house off grid in Sydney, I think it was back in 2012/13. We're completely self-sufficient for energy. For about 9 months of the year, we're self-sufficient for water. And at the we grew most of our own food. I could actually feed a family of four adults. We ate about 4 days a week out of the backyard, which is pretty cool. So for me, when I left Sydney, it was actually the hardest thing to walk away, was all that time, energy, and effort put into sugar and that sort of stuff. So I learned a lot of Michael of basically composting and water. So this is Michael's Cool Seats project, which honestly I don't know much about at all. He was going to jump on and tell us about it, but he's just got a quick call to deal with at the moment. So I know years ago Michael was working on a project with a self-watering garden bed, had a little bit of solar power, caught water and things like that. And then this is a new project where there's Cool Seats, and there's a lot of work around the cities, these compost benches. Cool. So Cool City compost benches. They look pretty cool if you ask me. Yeah, so composting is one of those things that I know from an energy point of view, and a lot of people look at wood as a renewable energy source, and it's actually more environmentally friendly and more beneficial to the environment to actually burn wood than let it sit there and rot on the ground. The methane that it creates, that's why it's so important with our food waste. I don't know if Michael can tell us much about in Sydney, in Carlingford, I think it is, there is in Carlingford, there is a energy plan out there, and what they actually do, I did an energy audit years ago at a fruit store, and they were really concerned. They're over in the Northern Rivers in Sydney, Northern Beaches in Sydney, and they were really concerned with all their food waste and what happened to it, where it went, that sort of stuff. And we did a bit of a follow of where their food scraps went. Actually went out to Carlingford, which actually, instead of basically going on the ground, and we did create methane, but they actually recaptured that methane, and it actually, it's not just that fruit store, but the facility out in Western Sydney, out there in Carlingford, I think back in the day, and this was, it'd have to be 10 years ago now, they were powering 3,000 Sydney homes from food scraps, and they would collect, so Viola in Sydney was collecting all this waste, and they were powering about 3,000 homes. So it was really good to follow when I was doing the energy audit on the business to see where all the food waste went to, and it went out to this place out in Carlingford, which, yeah, they recaptured that methane gas has actually powered 3,000 Sydney homes. So some really cool projects now with the energy I've been looking at and working on. It's one of those things that returning, the biggest problem I see with our food at the moment is a lot of our food's grown, thousands of kilometres away from us. The food comes back into the cities, and that excess that should go back out to the farms, we put back into the farmlands to rejuvenate the soil, it just doesn't make it back there. So it's something that the more we can buy food locally and that compost can get returned, and we can close the loop of getting things back. So Michael, will tell us more about these Cool Seats projects, and we'll just see if Michael's finished his call and it's good to go. Just give us a thumbs up, mate, whenever you're ready. You're muted there. Just going to jump over to Michael's books. So we've actually put the links in the description down below for Michael's books. The Sustainable House. Oh. Michael Mobb's Sustainable House, here we go. So both these books are really good read, both from an energy efficiency point of view and looking to grow your food. It shows basically, Michael's product and service. Okay, cool. Michael's back and ready to go. Let's jump over here. Hey, mate. I'll stop sharing my screen. We got you back. There we go.
Right.
All sorted?
Thank you, everybody. I just had a bit of a drama on site that I had to entertain myself with. So now I can entertain myself with you guys. How are you all doing? Has Mike sent you to sleep yet?
Yes, I was just telling about my story. I was telling about cool seats. So tell us about the Cool Seat project.
So the New South Wales EPA have given me a grant to trial ending food waste in 5 cafes in Chippendale and 5 cafes in Bathurst, so we can get a city-country comparison. And it's interesting. It's a really attractive thing. It says "sit on me." It's a seat, and it's made out of Australian recycled timber, Australian steel and fabrication in Bathurst, Australian plastic fabricated in Western Sydney, and made by Labor. So the aim is to keep local money. If you look at a garbage truck, it's actually a truck taking a load of gold past the council to the subcontractor who does most of the work, and so it's taking local money out of local economies and concentrating it in hands somewhere else. And what we're trying to do is cut not just food waste, but stop money going out of the cafes, make their businesses more viable, and show that we can actually do this without council. I mean, if you fast forward and ask yourself, what would a city or a town look like if we're going to stop carbon pollution we've only got 9 years left to do it. What's that?
Did you say 9 or 90?
9.
9.
Yeah, the UN has said, sorry guys, if we don't end carbon pollution by 2030, we can't do anything to stop climate collapse. And when I talk about it, I think the first thing that's going to go, they're already going, are the seasons. If we have no seasons, we can't grow food. But anyway, back to how I see it, there'd be no garbage trucks. We could sleep in. There wouldn't be the noise of a sort of quasi-war in our streets. But those people, I want to create local jobs, not just keep local money there, but give local jobs to people to compost.
Yeah.
And what the seat is intended to do is to get bald-headed old grumpy blokes out of the back garden into the mainstream, so it looks stylish, and so, my friend, he composts, he's always spilling. And so these seats, we're doing 300 kilos a week in our streets in Chippendale.
That's
and people
great.
sit in the seats. I get this lovely, delicious pleasure where my internal voice says, "You don't know you're sitting on rotting food, do you?" Because you
Yeah.
can't smell it.
Yeah.
It's stylish.
Yeah. It's actually, I was actually down Sydney about 2 weeks ago visiting family, birthday party, and so I was actually so impressed. It's one thing that Sydney has going for it. Everyone I know, everyone composts or has a worm farm. So it's crazy. So it's good to see. We're up here in the northern rivers in the country. It's so everyone's rural, everyone's just something everyone's always done. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the amount of people in Sydney that there's most people I know in Sydney compost or have a worm farm. So
Yeah.
impressive.
And the thing about this is it reframes composting so that it's not different and it looks stylish. You know, who wants to dig around and all that sort of stuff? You just hoik it in and yeah.
So what do you do with the soil like after you've, what happens to the soil from the, so these are just sitting on the side of the street?
Well, because we're also growing about 1,000 fruit trees, herbs and plants in the footpaths here, chilies, pawpaw, fruit trees, rosemary, nasturtium. The soil is pretty bad in the verges.
Yeah.
And it's taking us, it'll eat up all the compost we put there. So we put it there, but also people come and pick it up and they put it in their balcony pot plants. It's basically a free resource. And for the cafes, they can grow food there that they sell. So nasturtium makes lovely salads. Pansies make lovely flowers to go on salads. And in the case of cafes, they get 2 extra seats out the front of the cafe. So the compost goes on either bare soil or grass. The ones on the Cool Seat website are done on the grass in a big precinct at Tremaine's Mill in Bathurst, or it can go on the pavement. And because it's got a base there, so it won't damage the pavement. And that's typical for a lot of city or town places. The cafe gets 2 seats, which is more money in the door for them as well. And they can just go out and pick some flowers and things like that.
But they'd be heated this time of year as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, because it's surrounded by soil. The worms can come and go, and the soil insulates it. So we're actually composting food in 4 to 6 weeks, really fast.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice healthy worms.
It's a bit slow, Mike, with councils that don't have a really good footpath gardening policy.
Yeah.
What's happened is we've built our cities, and what we've done, aside from putting all this hard pavement there, we've made it so that the soil in the road verge is just regarded by the engineers as a wasteland. So it's often downtrodden, it's unattractive. And so what happens is the trees don't grow to their full height. It's really hard to get plants growing. So I want to show you, can you zoom up on this bloke on the pneumatic drill here?
Well, it's
Yeah, so this is about 2008, and we worked with the council to revive all our road gardens. This bloke was one of the council workers working with us to plant trees, and we couldn't get a pick into it, so he went back to the work shed, brought back a mobile drill, and drilled through this soil which compacted.
that's crazy.
And if you see places, if you see what it looks like now, it's just, people walk down the streets here, and on a hot day, it's cool. and so the aircon isn't on, or it doesn't have to work as hard.
Yep.
I mean, look at this, Mike. This shows one of the verge gardens. Under it, once we got the soil out, the council had planted the plants on top of 1930s reinforced concrete. I mean, in the road, plants and trees and humans are a second thought, and engineers don't count.
Yeah.
So again, the council went out and broke up the concrete so we could put our pawpaw trees and fruit trees in and reconnect with the soil and water below. So what we're doing is we're cooling the suburb, and this image here shows the way we make our cities unlivable, not just for us, but for birds and insects. In the background, this is a subdivision, I think, somewhere near Kingscliff. There's a farm and forest, and then the farm becomes a new subdivision. And then what happens is we put all these black roads and things on them, and we heat the suburb up so that it's 8 to 10 degrees hotter than it was before we cut the trees down. About 20 to 34% of our cities and towns have black roads, black roofs, and so on. So they've got this big island of unseen heat. And this is a long answer to your question, what do we do with the compost? It'll be over soon before your next birthday, so hang in. And what happens is that compost regrows the soil, revitalizes it, makes the trees and the plants grow. So it's a way of reviving our city environment. People walk down the street here. So I'm talking to you 2021. So that we did that in 2008. So, you know, it's a completely different street. I'll try and find some images for you. But what that does, cools the street, reduces aircon, reduces the bills for aircon, grows food, cleans the air, and increases property value. There's really good data that shows that the richer suburbs are the suburbs with more trees and plants. So coming back, if you can, I was talking about some councils are good at this, some councils are not. Here we have a policy that you can garden in the street without a permit. You just have to do some obvious things. You have to do dial before you dig, so you don't get a gas main and blow yourself up. Not near a corner, so you don't obscure vision. And that's been going since we had the policy made in 2012, Sydney City Council.
Yep.
By contrast, in Bathurst, the engineers, bad. We don't want plants, and yet Bathurst cooks. You know, you could fire a gun down the street and hit somebody blocks away because there's no trees.
Yeah.
And it's really hot.
Yeah. It's actually our business where we are. We're next to an aircon guy, and he's noticed so many air conditioners failing in these new divisions because literally there's no space between there's a meter up the side of the house. The aircon's got to go into that. It just blows hot air onto itself. And he said he's seen a huge uptake in aircons failing because they're just killing themselves because they're just creating this own heat box. And then the neighbour puts it next to next to each other. And
well, this is great. This is house number 1 with an aircon.
Yeah.
And just across the other side from us, house number 2, they both got their aircon on. This one's blowing hot air at that one. That one's blowing hot air at that.
Yeah.
If you wanted to design a failed way to develop a suburb, that would be the suburb that your neighbour's aircon business is describing. These guys,
yeah,
they go to university, they get planning degrees. For what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, talking to architectural students over the years, the first thing I always talk to the guys about is external shading devices, and it's something that it's So they spend 5 years at school, and then you mentioned external shading devices. There's something that's in 5 years that's not really covered. And that's one of the most powerful things you do is keep sun off concrete, brick walls, and make it cooler. And it's just not.
When I was going out, I go to Bathurst a lot for this project, and the new subdivisions in Bathurst, right in the bush, in the country, they're like your neighbour says, they're maybe 1.5 meters apart with a fence 700 off them. They've got a black roof, and the older versions of those suburbs, all the ones with a big frontage facing west, they've got blinds, they've got sheds and everything to keep the western sun off them.
Yeah.
And there's no cost forced on them by poor planning, poor design. But anyway, we could spend our whole life whinging about that. We're here to talk about solutions. Zip it, Mumsy.
Cool. Well, mate, tell us some of your experiences over the years, some good or bad, that could help people out, to not make the same mistakes. Or
Well, my greatest disappointment, of course, is myself.
Yep.
And I want to talk about my biggest mistake with the house, because it just shows you don't need to go to university, you just need to look and feel. So I'd done the house, made it sustainable, renovated the kitchen and bathroom. It was a 3-month kitchen and bathroom renovation. And during that 3 months, we disconnected from town water, disconnected from town sewer, put in our own sewage system, and put in solar panels. By the way, in 1996, my solar panels cost me, it still hurts, $26,000. Not even batteries, right? The same panels cost $1,500. So that's a good story. But anyway, back to my big mistake. So I was afraid of being bullied by, the water and energy companies. And that's happened. But anyway, on the day they launched, the Premier launched it and issued me a fine because the frogs in the backyard were making too much noise. He was just joking. He wasn't serious. He served me with a noise control notice as part of the launch. But anyway, somebody said, did you put a grate under the fridge during the launch? And I looked at them. I said, no. Anyway, the fridge in my house uses most energy. It's on 24/7 in most houses. If you and I were talking the Arctic, we'd be dressed up like this, and I'd be, so we wouldn't need a fridge. We just need some place to keep the food from freezing. If we're in the Arctic, in the tropics, I'd be deliciously naked, and the fridge would be working overtime because of the heat around it. So a fridge works harder or less hard depending on the outside air temperature. If I put a grate under that fridge, if only, I could have harvested the cold air below the floor, brought it up to provide an invisible cold envelope, a kind of coat of coolness around the fridge, reduced it by 2 or 3 degrees 24/7. And then as it was warmed up by the fridge's engine, I could have taken it up and provided some more warm air to dry the towels above in the bathroom. So every time I looked at that fridge, it was a gas guzzler too. Eventually I bought an energy efficient fridge. But what that taught me is, this is not rocket science. It's just training my eye to look and to see. And so somebody, a famous, I can't mention the name because I've signed a confidential. Anyway, they're making a Netflix documentary. They're a famous US actor. And anyway, he asked me if I would work with him to make his new house sustainable. I said, because it's too far away. Anyway, I said, go and sit in the land before you do anything. Take a friend if you like, take a picnic, get there at dawn. Listen to the birds. Where do the birds fly from? What are their calls? Are there birds? Stay there. If you have a liquid lunch, you can sober up hopefully by evening. and see how it changes where the sun goes. See the land and imagine yourself in your bedroom. Imagine yourself on the veranda. How do you see that house being situated? You just have to spend a day on the site, if it's a new site like this is. Absorb what happens. And then you can see what the people who buy these houses that are new in these new subdivisions, you know, you have to bid for these houses in 30 minutes. How can you make a lifelong decision in 30 minutes? So it makes me sad, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, there's a question there.
Yeah. So Natalie's asked, how do you find the balance in a suburban area between trees for shade, habitat, etc., and overshading for solar panels?
Oh, Natalie, that's a great question. You can stay. So, sometimes if it's an existing house, you got limited solutions because you can't be as flexible if you're getting a new block of land or something like that. But trees are different. There are trees that lose their leaves in winter, and you can have them so that in summer they'll get lots of leaves back and shade your western wall if you're in this part of the planet. And the same with the north, where you want to get the sun. Listen how important this is. So Bathurst was -1 when I was there last week, and the bloke I was staying with, he had a big glass wall facing north, the sun, and he had some clotheslines in this space about 1.5 meters deep, and then tiles there. It was warm as, and the clothes were drying. So if you can get sun and harvest it, get it harvested inside the house, that'll be good. And to make sure you don't obscure that northern sun, you might like to have, say, grapevine or trellis. They lose their leaves in summer, in winter. So have a talk to somebody in a nursery about your situation and see if you can get some guidance from them on what would work where you are. I don't know where you are, but it gets really hot up where Mike is in the north there. But you can get plants that will work with you in the seasons, and you can also get plants and trees that will give you food as well. Does that answer your question, Natalie? Are you still there? Have I sent you to sleep?
Yeah, no, she's put some smiley faces up, mate. So it's yeah, pop up.
Good on you, Nathan.
It is. It's the biggest thing that I see that, you know, from designing solar systems for people is people not willing to work with nature. They're the people that have the most issues with energy. And, you know, going and sitting on that land, we had a guest on here last week, and that was his advice. Is he would have, if he'd done things different, he would have spent more time on the land before he built. He did actually build down the bottom halfway through the hill, which was great. And that's a big mistake I see a lot of people is they plump the house on the top of the hill to get this big, amazing view, and it's the coldest spot on the block because the wind comes straight over the top of it. So they're constantly fighting that battle. So Natalie says she's in Victoria, so they've just been smashed by devastating winds.
Hey, Natalie and everybody else, I'm going to show you. Can you zoom in, please, Mike?
Yep.
Great relief to everybody to see an image rather than my face. This is an image of Chippendale, where I live, near Central Railway in Sydney, taken between the midnight hours of 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. So these roads are over 40 degrees during those midnight hours. The sun at the top shows where north is in Sydney, and your response to Natalie's question will depend on where the road that your house is, the direction of the road. So this is west on mine over here, and so it's really cooking there, and you can see it's going all the way down that road, and this road here is not overshadowed. So the answer to Natalie's question will depend on the orientation of the house and where you are. Did I get that across, Mike? Did that work for you?
Yeah, no, I think that's every single site's different. There's so many different microclimates and different situations. I know for us in Seven Hills, when we did our house, we had running bamboo down the western side of the wall to stop that western sun. It also made it really easy for me to maintain running bamboo. It was all a concrete patch between the footpath and the neighbours. And it made it really easy to maintain. And also at the front of the house, we had deciduous trees, which in winter, the leaves are gone. So we could really actually soak that sun into the concrete at the front of the house. And in summer, we had leaves everywhere to try and really stop that concrete heating up. Well, after I sold my house, it was interesting to see it worked really well for us. Like we lived on an off-grid, a little 3 kilowatt solar system. And I've still got monitoring the house. I can see everything that's going on. And like they hammer the air conditioning in summer. They've cut all the passion fruits off in the front of the house. They've chopped the running bamboo head down the front. So it's all gone. So this concrete just gets heated up in summer and the aircon goes on. So it's interesting to watch someone else just walk in and take over and how different the house operates. Because like I said, I've still got monitoring to the house. I can see their energy bills.
That's good before and after data, Mike. That's valuable. I'd get Ilka or somebody who's I know she's in the background there somewhere.
Yeah, we
work and put it up as a sort of thing to go with this. That's vital stuff. You don't have to. You'd keep it anonymous, but just put in a graph. It's really interesting.
We can show that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know Ilka does so much work. I'm just giving you work, Ilka. I know you're there somewhere.
She loves it. So cool. So, mate, for people at home, like living in the city, a lot of people watching this and live in the city. What's some of the some tips that people can go out and start straight away?
Okay. What a great question. Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. That's what I wanted to be the main point. You don't have to be special. You just have to be who you are. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do anything other than start to buy food differently. Just by going to farmers markets, they'll teach you, the farmers. You'll learn more than walking down this anonymous aisle in a checkout thing. Please give yourself permission to say, I'm okay, I can do this. Look, there's no such thing as waste. Nature doesn't waste, just a failure of imagination. And you can grow your imagination by going to farmers markets, growing food. And there's a really good book in which I have no financial interest in, called Eat It All, I think it is. It's published by Corner Smith. And so I'm now learning, I make all my own vegetable stock. When I'm heroically cutting off the ends of the carrot, in it goes to my container for me to make some vegetable stock. So just by doing something each day, by buying local food and by cooking it and making sure there's no food waste, you can save more energy and water and money and live healthier just by that small step of connecting yourself with good food. But if you wanted to get solar or batteries and so on, again, I used to be a lawyer. And now I'm going to give you some advice from somebody who's been burnt. Don't be romantic. You're not buying the panels. You're not buying the batteries. You are buying the promised amount of power. Don't stand there afterwards looking romantically at the roof saying, look at my solar panels, how good am I? How wonderful. They're just panels. There are people who've done that and discovered sometime later the panels weren't connected properly and they're getting no power. So get a graph that shows you what the panels will produce each month for the 12 months of the year. So you can say, yep, I accept your price and I accept it on the basis of your graph of what it will give me. And get somebody who's been around like Mike for 5, 10, 15 years who knows the importance of that graph, because you're buying the promised amount of power. I just wanted to say that because I know Mike does some really good work with solar, and a lot of the people here would be interested in solar panels.
So I've just popped up something that's really important to, I've just shared on the screen. I don't know if you can set it up, but yeah, these programs that we use, I was actually just telling Ilka this morning that, yeah, so these tell you an estimated how much energy the system's going to produce. You know, each month of the year, you know, we use these programs so we can change angles of the panels and things like that. Estimated usage and things like that. So yeah, they're really good data. And I was actually just telling Ilka this morning that for me, I followed the program. I did a test in my house, and I thought, you know, we'll use the program, we'll put it in, and whatever the program says, that's how we'll install the solar panels on my house. And basically, you know, the system over a 12-month period, 100% will perform better and produce more energy. But I actually end up, because I've got my panels flat to roof, and I really want to do this test. And we knew we'll put another system up in a couple of years. I think it's been about 3 years since my system has been up, and we're about to put a new one up because we had an extension on the roof. And it's, yeah, I use so much more energy in winter because my panels are flat. From a financial point of view, it works out better, but from a self-consumption point of view, it's better off to have the panels on the right angle, have them more facing north or that northeast, northwest if possible, if your roof allows it to get that maximum self-consumption for the year. So, yeah. It's one of those things that a lot of people, they think if they put panels on the roof, everyone's going to drive down the street and think that they're doing the right thing. I know for me, every time I end a talk about energy, I always ask people this: if the world was a big fuel tank, it was, you know, one source of fuel, what were the 3 best things you could do to reduce your footprint, reduce the amount of fuel that you use? And I always end with food being the #1 thing: grow your own food, harvest your own water, and catch public transport when you can. Because doing those 3 things are better than putting solar panels up any day of the week. So if you were to do those 3 things, yeah.
Right. I'm going to stop boring you guys in 12 minutes. So I've got some key points that come out of that from Mike. Firstly, solar panels. I think I've got 3 points. Let's hope I can keep count. If this is a solar panel and this is your roof, do you see the shadow on my finger? The panels will cool your roof by 2 to 4 degrees because they're like an umbrella over the roof. Isn't that cool?
Yep, the safari roof.
Yeah, wanted to get that off my chest. The second thing is, Mike mentioned rain tanks. Now, they're not as sexy as solar panels, and they're big, but water is a huge issue for our dry country. My house is in the middle of Sydney, right near Central Railway. Planes fly overhead, very busy roads. The kids were young. I didn't want to kill the kids. So for 18 months, every 2 weeks, we sampled the rainwater in partnership with New South Wales Health. In the laboratory, the rainwater from this house, Sydney Sustainable House, was compared with tap water. And mine was cleaner. Who did that? Mine was cleaner every time for 18 months. Almost 3 million Australians drink rainwater every day. No one has died drinking rainwater. You know where it's come from, and there are really, really simple things you can do to get clean water, and it's delicious to the taste. That's the second thing that came out of what Mike said, and the third thing was such a long time ago I can't remember. But anyway, transport, yeah. This morning, I want to get something that's big and cumbersome out to a place called Nundle, where I'm doing a gig on Sunday. And it's bigger than the train people allow. So I'd already booked online. And as I was walking up to Central, about a 10-minute walk, I thought, my little legs were like little puppy dogs wagging their tails. They were so glad to be taken out for a walk. And I thought, it's good to be alive. So I walked up there and I just felt great. I felt in tune with my body, more alert. And also, when I got there, I met the nicest person on earth. She said, I can put you in an aisle seat if you like, because when you go online, the computer just puts you wherever. So the lesson I learned this morning is, first one was always deal with a human because they're more likely to be looking after you as a fellow human. Secondly, all odd numbers on New South Wales trains have a window seat. If you don't have an odd number on your ticket, you've got an aisle. And it's nice to be able to sleep on that trip. But what comes out of that transport issue is use your feet and you connect with your body, your environment, and in most places you'll meet another human being, and sometimes you'll get things from that other human being that reaffirm that, you know, we're not too bad. A lot of us are a bit of a pain, but most of us have goodness, and walking is a great way to meet other people and look after your body.
Yeah.
We'll put that up. I'm going to read it because it's a cracker. Use your feet, bracket, or your stick stroke wheels. If your feet aren't working, close bracket, smiley face. I wonder who put that up there, Mike. Did you see that?
That's your go.
I know. I'm just teasing her. Backroom girl.
Yeah, so cool. Well, mate, yeah, is there anything else that you want to finish up on and let people know?
I just want to thank you for doing this. I think it's a really good idea. You and have been a real pleasure to deal with, easy to get on with, and I wish you and your channel all that very good time. And I can see there's 8 minutes left, but let's not just fill up the space because it's there. Let's just sign off. I think we both said all we're going to say, and you can play some nice music. What about David Bowie live in London, live in Germany? We can be heroes.
Oh, we went together. I just go on last week. We should have. So I got some stuff to learn. We'll get around to that. But mate, I want to say thank you. You know, you've been a real inspiration to me over the years and helped me out with. You know, I'm in the midst of my second off-grid house at the moment. I think in my lifetime, I'm going to do 3. I've still got my goal. I want to build a. You know, what I want to end up doing in life, I want to build a caravan park, if we'll call it that. And I want to have a row of hemp houses, a row of straw bale houses, a row of magnesium oxide, all these different homes built in the caravan park so people can come holiday and experience all these natural things. So,
oh, what a wonderful dream. I just want to finish on 2 points, one relating to that. My friend has an earth house in Bathurst. It's so warm.
Yeah.
The second point is this. Oh, fantastic. The final point is this. Your inner voice or your friends or officialdom will say, you can't do that. Tell that little voice it's afraid. Even if you make a mistake, at least you're having a go. And that little voice was a voice that I heard when people said, you can't do that, you can't drink rainwater, you can't go off grid. Listen to the little voice. And when it says you can't do that, you say, you watch. Yeah. Thank you. And I play the song. Play the song.
No, we'll the next time we get on, mate, we'll work out how to play the song. We'll finish with that. So, but yeah, so thank you to anyone that's, I know we've actually had a lot of requests for this. People want to see the replay. So there will be a YouTube link if you want to share around to friends and family, things like that. And all the descriptions of Michael's books and website will be in the description below. So you can check that out and get more information from Michael. So cool. All right, mate. Well, thank you. We'll end it there and have a great day.
See you later.